Okay. Nice. Welcome, welcome. All right. So we are live. So let's get started. It's been a minute since I have done this. This is another game design breakdown stream where I talk about video games and what I'm working on, what project I'm working on. Really just a backlog for me. So I can always look back in time and see, what was I doing at the time and where is my development process in this moment. So the last video that we did was about Unreal. I was showing off all the work that I was doing in Unreal, how I was playing with it, where I got with it. It was like a third person action game, kind of inspired by Metal Gear. Well, since then, I've wanted to get back into Unity, and Unity is something I was a lot more comfortable with Unreal, and I'm actually having a lot more fun developing the game uh in Unity because I think I'm also like not learning the engine as I'm going along, but I'm also uh just all the having more control over the project. I think that Unreal is very good for artists where it lets you do a lot of cool and make some really cool looking stuff. But when it comes to developing and technical, unless you're doing like C++ code and you know like how the engine really works, you don't have a lot of control. And Unity gives me a little bit more control than Unreal, which is why I like it. But, they both have their positives, they both have their negatives. Uh choose what fits you. So, this project, how did this project start? What's going on with this? Well, it started as essentially chat.gdp. I asked it, give me 10 game ideas. And these are the 10 game ideas. Hopefully the stream isn't bad and we can see these. Uh these are the 10 game ideas that it came out with. So battle royale game set in a post-apocalyptic world, virtual reality adventure in a fantasy world, multiplayer open world survival game, a competitive team-based first-person shooter, uh, fantasy RPG with cooperative multiplayer, sports simulation game with realistic physics and deep player customization, real-time strategy game with a unique and diverse unit type, multiplayer city, building simulator, action adventure game with rich and immersive storyline, and then the last one, which was the one that really surprised me. It was the one that really grasped me. Stealth action game with procedural generated levels and permadeath. So these are, I think, all generic. Exactly what you would expect the AI to kind of shoot out if you ask for like 10 ideas. They're all very generic. But the last one being the stealth action game with procedural generated levels and permadeath was really interesting to me. So it's essentially kind of like like a Hades roguelike action stealth action game was what I was thinking. So I really like this idea, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna make it. I played with the AI a little bit more after that, but that was the gist of it. So I reinstalled Unity, and we got started. Now I have certain like habits of Unity that I just have from the last game. It's literally been almost a year since I've worked in Unity with running gun, and so it was really kind of nice and refreshing to get back into it and kind of get into the flow of things. And you start basically with my player. But before I really got on my player, I knew that Chat.gp was a huge thing and I wanted to experiment more with it, play with it. I'm not a big coder. Coding has always been a huge struggle for me in general, but I know that uh, Chat.gdp really helped me code when I was working on the SDL project for a bit, which I didn't show because I didn't really think it was worth it. But it really helped me understand code and improve it and troubleshoot my code and just really improve my level as a programmer overall. And I knew that there are now tools to integrate Chat.gdp into Unity. So that was super duper cool. And we basically got this. So I bought this. It was on sale. I highly recommend um getting this if you haven't already, or not this. Uh, where is it? I swear I had it up. It's chat.gdp script integrator, essentially. That's what it's called. And it was here. Now it's not. I have no clue why. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find it. My assets. Oh, that was it. I'm dumb. Whoopsie. Um. So yeah, this I don't know why I just did that because I didn't see the video and that's what freaked me out. So this tool set is really, really cool. Essentially, what it does is it generates the script of code for you, and all you have to do is type in, your prompt, what you want. The more specific, the better, and it will generate it for you. So right here, in the video, this dude shows add 3D plane controller that accelerates automatically up to a max speed, yada yada, and then it generates the script and it will automatically code that script for you and then import it and place it, and there you go, you have it. So it was super, super cool. It streamlines the pipeline. It makes it a lot faster and easier to build your game out, and I highly recommend picking this up if you haven't already. It's not perfect. There's definitely things that you have to go in and change, um, to add on to build upon, but it is very good for making the bare minimum script and just speeding it up. And as a coder, it helped me because I've found using this tool that uh, I have the correct thought process generally when it comes to solving these problems, but I just don't know how to execute it. So seeing them execute it for me was super helpful. So from there, we got coding. I didn't know. I looked up some videos, of course. Unity has a huge, huge list of tutorials on YouTube, which I liked a lot more than Unreal. Of just people out there showing you how to do things, how you can do things, and how to make games. So you have a lot more support than you do. The first thing I tackled was making my character, which right now is just your basic, sphere. And then also, then I wanted to use Unity's new input system, so I played with that. Uh, which now lets you kind of control a lot more. I think Unreal's import system is a lot more. I like it better, but you know, using and trying to level up my game is kind of the entire point of this project. So starting with Unity's new input system, getting the controls work, we have that here. Uh, in case you want to see it, so we have the movement, which is just basic WASD controls, right? We have action one, which is left mouse button, action two, which is right mouse button, and then a reload for now. And there'll probably be more keys added as time goes on, but that's what I have going for now. We get the player input section, and then we change it to invoke Unity events because it's an event system, very similar to how Unreal does it. And we just call those events off the script. And that was the player, and it all started in this script, which is my player controller script. So the player controller script, here it is. Very, it's nothing too complex, but I'm gonna run through it real fast. Uh, it's still in development, so it's still going at the moment. But I have my three stereo fields to control my speed, um, the gravity of the player, current velocity, speed again, uh, current speed and speed. We'll talk about those later. Movement, direction, my character controller, my attributes, my gun. Those are all private variables to references to other scripts. Same thing as a reference to the actual physical model. In the awake function, we make sure to assign the character controller so we can move. Make sure to assign the attributes or get the attributes so we have all the health and mana and all the other functions that are there. Because I want to make sure that I have those all working. We have the on move function, which is the thing that lets us move. So, if this is your first time, this may seem very new, but if you're used to Unity's input system, I think this is all very standard. Uh, so this is the script that lets us to move, and then in the update function, we have uh, current speed is basically the actual speed, but I have the agility effect from the player attribute affects speed, meaning the more agility you have, the faster you can move. And that's why this is assigned here. And then we also have the apply rotation, which this script lets us rotate our character around. And then we have the apply gravity, which this script lets us um, have gravity, so our player actually, can fall and stuff like that. And those are the main two scripts. Fixed update is basically this is also where the movement is called because I don't want it to happen every single frame. You're not moving every single frame, so I have it in fixed update. There's some tutorials on this. There's a lot of tutorials on this. I don't really recall which dude I followed. I believe we can pull it up real fast if I just go to my I'm on the wrong account. That's why. So I can't pull it up. But you find the videos, and those are the videos to make sure that everything is moving properly. That's essentially what this script is doing. Hopefully, the compression comes out good on the YouTube stream later on, so you can actually see it. Kind of freaked out about that because I want to actually remember to see these codes and see it in the video without actually having to go back and look in a file. But I will eventually upload this to GitHub when I find the right time. So don't worry about that if you're interested in actually seeing like all the code, examining it yourself. So from there, we have the on aim function. This is essentially that if you can only shoot if you're aiming, so that's what this checks is to make sure that if you're aiming or not. Um, it's probably more complicated than it could be, but this is kind of where I start to run into like errors and chat.gdp, both the script add-on for Unity and it it itself really helped me kind of work this work my way through it. But this script basically checks that if you're aiming and stops the speed, and it also checks to see if you have your gun. And then I needed the find gun function to make sure that it's actually finding the game object because the game object uh, comes in disabled, and then it re-enables once you start the game. So that was the first big script, right? Uh, Super cool. Got that out of the way. Player movement. We can move. We can shoot. We can do all that on the player. We have the gun. So this is the gun. This is the gun script. Nothing too crazy here. We have our stats, which is our weapon attack, our weapon range, our ammo, our fire rate, fire point, which is the point where the raycast comes from, our hit mask, and our reload. I still need to work on reload. And then we have our is aim to check if we're aiming again. That talks to the controller script. All right, and our next time to fire. We also have our attributes because attributes is again, it's taking the strength of the player and the weapon attack and it's multiplying it to see how much damage you're doing. So that's how I have that set up. And then in the update function, just a simple debug raycast, so I know so I can see the line. We have our shoot function, so this is the actual code shoot. As it sees, it subtracts ammo, uh, and then it fires the raycast. And if it's the raycast, it calls the damage function in the attribute class and it lets me know what it hits. We have our reload function, just reloads the gun. And then on fire, is the actual function that we're calling when we're clicking. So when we're clicking, we're making sure that if is aiming equals true, then and we hit the button down, then the next fire and the ammo is greater than 0, then we can shoot and it will do it by the fire rate. And then we have the actual on reload uh callback for the input system as well. And that pretty much covers the input system right now. It's just the gun and the player. It's super simple. And it took a little bit to get going because if I did it the normal traditional Unity way, I think it would have been a lot easier. There's a lot older tutorials for that, but I wanted to keep it uh relatively new, learn something new, keep it up to date. So that's how I did it. And yeah, the last real part of the player is the knife, which just has an animator. Speed doesn't do anything. Uh, and attack is the same thing as the other one with gun. And basically, what this is doing is it has a collider on it to check if the collider does damage. It's checking, this is the actual knife function that you're calling. It's checking to see if aiming is false. So make sure that the gun doesn't come out while you're using the knife. It also checks your and plays your animation. And that's pretty much it. Speed doesn't do anything, and the knife script is just a more simpler version of the gun script. And then the last script on the player right now would be the attributes, which is my standard attribute script for like every NPC. I'm kind of trying to keep it like Dark Souls, where all Dark Souls NPCs are essentially the same thing as the player, but they all have different stats rolled into their stat pool, but they're basically the same as the player. So some enemies have higher dexterity than you, et cetera, right? So basically, we have max health, current health, strength, agility, charisma, intelligence, luck. These are going to be your main stats. I don't know how they're going to level up or affect the game too much. Pretty much, agility only affects like movement at the moment, and strength only affects damage. So I'm not too sure how the other ones are going to affect in the game. I may remove them, who knows? But they're there. We have the calculate damage script, which only works for the gun. So I have to make kind of multiple damage functions. Um, so one for the gun, which is your standard one, or one for just standard damage. Or actually one for the gun, one for the knife, and one's that true damage for like NPCs, so I can balance NPCs. And then that's the attribute stat. Real simple. And we have our player. So that's completely done. That's how the player works. That's the ins and outs of our basic player for Project 007. Uh, Next up, we kind of get into gameplay loop. So one of the requirements, right, was procedural generated. So I had to figure out how to make a procedural generated level. This took a little bit of tweaking with chat.gdp to get it right and to get my phrases right. But basically, this entire script is chat.gdp generated, which is super duper cool. And here it is. Basically, it checks prefabs of the levels. So the actual like level squares that I'm gonna make, place in the world. It checks to see what's that in the list. It sees how many rows, how many columns, so how big I want the level to be. The spacing between it, so how close or far I want each of those prefabs to be, and then it calls this generate level script, which spawns the levels. And that's all chat.gdp generated. Super duper simple, super cool. As you can see, I have 2 level prefabs in right now, and 10 rows, 10 columns, 10 spaces. So that is really cool. And what we get, I guess I can show you the prefabs real quick. Nothing too impressive. They're literally uh just blocks. And we hit play. It will load the level. So That's the level. As you can see, super duper big, cool because it's a 10 by 10 grid, so there's 10 by 10 squares. And that's it. Now, if you notice in the level, there are these green little cubes, and they're called spawn points. So initially, I needed to way to uh, figure out how to spawn my enemies, right? And this is how we did in Run and Gun, where I remember our coder and runner gun had different spawn points in each place to spawn the enemies, and we could place them where they spawn. In each wave, they would spawn at those points at those spawn points randomly, and that's how we did it. And I thought that would work here, and it did work here. Um, but it got complicated because I need to find these game objects and these cloned game objects and these children, and it just kind of got. Uh, I feel like if I went on long enough, it just would have been kind of crazy. Maybe then people could figure out like the actual spawn points. It will kind of maybe ruin the game. They could camp the spawn points, whatever, right? Uh, but I knew my toughest challenge with the prototype was going to be getting AI to work and getting that to really function properly, because that's what we struggled with running gun. That's what our coder really struggled with, is getting the AI to work and getting it to function properly in a way that we wanted it to run for that game. So a lot of learn by experience here with running gun. Even though I wasn't coding that game, I was very close to coding that game and programming that game. I did a lot of the all that design for that game, so I understood what the problems were, what our struggles were as a team, and where I may not have discovered how to solve those problems individually. I knew that they could be solved because my programmer already solved it. And, shout out to him. He's really smart, uh, really great guy. He works for ZeniMax now on the Other Scrolls Online. Uh, being a games system designer on that game. So, he definitely could solve these problems. And knowing that the struggles that he went through, I could just go through it easier, right? With ChatGPT 2 makes it even easier. So that's kind of the theme of uh I guess this project that would be is work smarter, not harder. But I'm still definitely working hard. So that's what these old spawn points used to be. And the script used to go out, grab them, or find these, spawn points and spawn them in our game manager. And that was the spawn enemy function. And if we look at that script, I actually have that legacy code down here. So this was the code that the chat.gdp and me kind of worked out, and this is the code that we found. So this is that old legacy code. That's not how it works anymore, as you can see. As you can see, it's probably a lot more complicated than an old legacy code, and we will get to that in a second. I just want to also just keep working our way through the game manager, because this is the thing that's going to manage our game loop, right? So I knew that I needed to get AI to work, right? And I needed to get our enemies to walk around and move and shoot properly. And how we did that in Running Gun was through nav mesh, right? Through AI nav mesh, where you bake it on, and it's like a plane, and the AI can know where to walk on that plane, how to jump, how to go back, and that's how we did it with Running Gun. So I know that's exactly where I needed to start. We know this because when I talked about AI in the Unreal video, I talked about how I struggled with the AI and getting it to work properly, and I don't think I did it the right way, and I would have done it through behavior trees and not through Unreal, like visual scripter, for example, right? But here's the thing: my level is procedural generated, uh, so it doesn't exist in the world before runtime, right? that posed a problem because you can only bake stuff uh in Unity if it's already exists. And in Run and Gun, our level already existed. Well, thankfully, there is a some genius people who have developed nav mesh component that to develop the nav mesh that it is actually a component that you put on game objects rather than it being a uh, part of or in Unity. And this is where it solves like all my problems for like the last couple days. So I want to bring your attention to this guy's videos. He has a very, very intensive course on nav mesh and getting AI to work. And I've just used strictly this dude to just get the AI to work. And it has 100% worked. And I loved it. I wish, he did these videos very, very recently. Um, I wish we had these videos when we were making Run and Gun because they would have been super, super helpful uh, when we were making Run and Gun. But as we were making Run and Gun, so he was doing these videos. So anyway, using uh Unity scripter component in this dude's videos, I was able to really get AI working. And I saw that he did so. He had procedural endless world with nav mesh. This is the first video that I saw, and I saw that he got nav mesh working um, when he generated procedural worlds. So as the levels are popping in, as we can see in the demo video that he shows. I saw this. I was like, okay, this is possible. This isn't exactly how I'm doing it, but this is how I want to do it. And then I saw that he has it baked around the player. So this is very, very similar to like kind of how I would guess Minecraft does it, where it only spawns mobs around the player. So I saw him do this, and I was like, all right, that's it. That solves all my problems. Boom. And then to get even better, he did a video about spawning and managing enemies around procedural level generators. So now it will spawn the enemies if you are, if they're around you, essentially, just like as we see here in this demo. So that made my life so much easier. So all these scripts are basically his. You can find these up on his GitHub. Full credit to him. Thank you so much. Definitely give him a like, subscribe. I have his, some really great content, really smart content, and just getting AI to work. I feel like it's always one of the most difficult things in the game. At least getting it like at least smart enough and responsive enough that things work out. So with that now in mind, as you can see, we have the enemy spawn script and the area floor baker script. And all those scripts do is exactly what they do in the videos. If you go and watch those videos, the area floor baker script, make sure that it bakes the floor around the player. And then we have all his other AI scripts to make the AI work, which we'll talk about in a bit. We have the enemy spawner script, which I showed you now. This makes sure that it will spawn the enemies in the nav mesh that I'm in. And at the end of the day, all of that will look like this. So if we play the game and we start moving, we'll see that enemy just spawned. There's an enemy up there that just spawned. There's enemies down here that just spawned that I didn't see, and they'll start following me once I get close to them. And then I can also, just to show you, I can kill them with the knife and the gun, just to show you that I had it earlier. It's a little buggy, of course, right? It's a prototype. That's the point. There's some tweaks and things I need to change and build off of, but I just wanted to get the basic gameplay loop of the prototype working, and just to show you guys what it looks like off screen. So off screen, as you can see, this is the nav mesh being baked around the player. Those are the enemies spawning. As we can see, they spawn within the player, and I don't need the spawn points anymore. It I don't have to worry about procedural generator stuff. Now I know there is like memory leak issue stuff and performance stuff that I have to worry about, but I don't plan on making the game super big or super large or anything like that. And when I do eventually find those problems, those are issues for future taping, right? So that solved all my problems. Super cool. Again, thank you for that, guy. And then we get to go into the enemy. So the enemy is the last real part to see how he works, how he ticks. Um, he has a couple scripts. Here's the prefab for my enemy. The enemy is it's basic enemy. Again, it has the attributes on it. It has enemy movement, which allows it to move. It has a waypoint systems, which I think allows it to do patrols, but I don't know if that works in his videos. I think he said it doesn't work because it's the level is going to be procedural generated, so it doesn't know where those points are. I'd have to test this, but that's what that's essentially for. Um, it has my nav mesh agent. It has my agent link mover. This is to make sure that when they jump over this video about that, but when they jump from level to level, like over cliffs, it makes it good. And this is the enemy script as well, which will need some tweaking. It has its model, basic model there, animator, whatever, an attack radius, and a line of sight radius. Uh, and these will need to be tweaked a little bit, but that is essentially the player. And then as you can, or that's essentially the enemy. And when you see that you put the enemy in the spawn enemy script, it's actually a scriptable object. And so he has a scriptable object here, and scriptable objects are something really cool. It's something that I really liked playing with when I did the Pokemon series, where it basically controls all the stats of the enemy, so I can make different types of enemies, uh, and make them do different things. And then it has an attack scriptable object to make sure that it attacks this is a delay, etc., etc. And now these things need tweaks, obviously. As you can see, I'm like getting a lot of bugs. And if we go into the actual like scripts and the attack radius scripts, there's a bunch of code that is, you know, lined out. It's commented out. And that's because I have my attributes script, which that's what handles damage and health. And I need to kind of integrate that into the AI and damage script. So that's my next step. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but I'm sure I can 100% figure it out. So that's the next big step. So, real quick, we're just going to browse through enemy spawning. I'm not going to explain it because I'm not 100% confident in explaining it. But if you want to look at it, you want to look at his videos, go back and look at his videos. I definitely recommend that you do so. And then that's it, right? So that's the prototype, that's the game that we have right now. Uh I have some, bugs to work out, but nothing that really crashes the game or completely breaks it or makes it unplayable. Uh Nothing like that. And I'm gonna continue to develop the game. But if we go back to uh our initial premise, our initial X statement, which is a stealth action game with procedural levels and permadeath. I already have the stealth action part technically done because the enemies do have a line of sight. As you can see, when I started playing the game, they don't follow you immediately; they have to see you. So I have the stealth action part. I have the procedural level generated. Every level is procedural generated. It's randomly generated based off tile sets. So I have that done. And technically permadeath is done because once you die, you're dead. It's just game over. There's no like real like end screen or anything like that. But I'm really making my way towards the stealth action game procedural generated level in permadeath. And I'm having a lot of fun doing so. I'm really happy doing so. I'm really happy with this project and I really enjoy being in Unity again. Anyway, that's going to be it for the prototype showcase. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this helps you out. Maybe if you're interested in doing Unity, let me tell you, from working from a year ago, they've made it so much easier. Even that, like even just the scripter itself in virtual virtual code studios, it will automatically just like guess what you want to do and what your next line of code will be, which we did not have a year ago. So the advancements in game design, it's getting easier and easier. It's getting easier for people to hop in and make their own games and make the dream come reality and maybe eventually change this market up where we can make really good indie games rather than keep getting screwed by big AAA games that have been kind of the big trend for the last couple years. So I'm really happy with this. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I know it's been a minute. Uh, I'll make sure to give you an update when I get to a point in the next point development, which would be kind of, uh, I believe, vertical slice. Maybe by then we'll have like a full like art and everything, and all my systems will mostly be in place, and AI will actually kind of be working. So next step would be vertical slice. Who knows how long that's going to take, but that will be the next goal. I'm super still motivated to work on this project more than I was with the Unreal project, which I was just kind of done with. And I'll get this up on GitHub for people who want to look at the code and see its development cycle as soon as possible. Anyway, this has been your host, Salty Waffles, signing off. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me out. And I hope you guys are having a wonderful climb.